Happy New Year, everybody. It's the Mind Mastery Podcast. I'm your co-host, Scott Patton, along with Dov Barron. Happy New Year, Dov.
Happy New Year, Scott. Happy New Year to our listeners. Even though it may be way off in the new year when you're actually listening to this, it's good to say New Year to you. And really, a year that is looking to be a very different year. A lot of things are going to be quite different, I think. I
think it's going to be a very exciting year with lots going on. Mm-hmm. We thought a lot happened in 2008. You ain't seen nothing yet, as they say, right? Also, today, we very rarely timestamp our podcast because the information is what I call evergreen. It's available. It's stuff that works any time. However, today, by just an amazing coincidence, certainly we didn't deliberately plan this, it's a very, very important day. It's a holiday in the United States, and it's in honor of a man who had a huge influence on you in your early days.
Yeah, it's Martin Luther King Day. And Martin Luther King was my influence. He was the guy who actually influenced me, if not on being a speaker, but certainly on the commitment to make a difference. I think we've talked about in previous podcasts.
Yes.
Walking in and catching my mom crying as it was announced that he'd been shot.
Yes.
And so Martin Luther King Day for me is a profound day. And for me, this year, this particular Martin Luther King Day, of course, precedes the day of the inauguration of Obama. And I think it's a particularly interesting day because I was listening last night to I Have a Dream. Mm-hmm. I listen to that speech quite often, right. And it's profound for me. I love that. And I was actually speaking with my vocal coach recently. He was telling me that everything up to that point was a very well-rehearsed speech that Martin Luther King had given 4 or 5 times.
Oh, okay.
But it was the I Have a Dream part was not.
So was that the first time he did it?
The first time he did it, and he did it unrehearsed, and it was speaking from his heart.
Oh, wow.
Right? The little black boys and little black girls and Jews and Gentiles and all that was just from his heart.
Wow.
And I was listening to that last night, and I thought, it's fascinating to me that what he talked about was this equality, which we have talked about in previous podcasts about the equality based on that we're all the same at an emotional level, at a psychological level, that we're spiritually the same, and the only difference is external, right. But internally we're the same. And he talks about this dream, and what a birth of a dream, in that a black man has become the President of the United States of America.
Yeah, he must be smiling.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, that is Martin Luther King's dream come true.
Yeah.
It has birthed. It's like the gestation period was 40 years.
Yeah. When you think about it, in terms of all of human history, right, 5,000 years or whatever, that's a pretty huge change in a very small period of time, historically speaking.
Well, dramatically. I mean, back then, the idea of having blacks and whites in the same washroom was outrageous.
Yeah, or on the same bus.
Right, or on the same bus, or to be able to intermingle, sit next to each other on the bus. And now here is a man, a great charisma, who is fulfilling, in my mind at least, Martin Luther King's dream.
Yeah.
And I know that they're doing a lot of that comparison and all the rest of it, but I don't know. In my fantasy, Martin Luther King is shaking Obama's hand and saying, "This is the fulfillment of a dream, not for black men, not for white men, not for but for equality, for that all men are created equal." I don't know if you've seen the movie Milk with what's his name?
I haven't seen it.
Anyway, he's one of my favorite actors, but I'm having a bit of a brain fart right now. Anyway,
Denzel Washington.
No. It's a recent movie, and it's about a white guy in San Francisco who's gay who runs for office.
Not Dustin. Sean Penn.
Sean Penn, thank you. Sean Penn was a great actor, and there's a line in that movie where Sean Penn says, "All men are created equal," and nothing can erase that. And see, again, that's not black, it's not white, it's not gay, it's not straight, it's not female or male. It's that we're all created equal.
Yeah.
And to me, the presidency going to a black man, a man of color, a man of other cultural background too.
Right.
You know, because his father is from Africa, he's from Kenya, and he lived in Indonesia as a child. I mean, this is a man who got more going on than having grown up in a small Midwest town and never having a global experience.
Right, right. He had a huge global experience.
Huge global experience. So, for me, it's that fulfillment of that dream of equality. And I'm very inspired by that. I'm excited by that. What about you? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I'm thrilled. Actually, it's to me, it's like there's been the old, and here is pretty dramatic new. And I think a lot of people have been very concerned about America, and certainly, you know, when you look at the exterior things like the stock market and foreclosures and the fighting in Iraq and you know the saber rattling all over the place, you just wonder what would it take to change that, right? And I think you know, a strong leader with a fresh direction and everybody behind him, because I think the last few years everyone's been kind of like coming to the same realization that we've got to change. We have to do something different.
Well, I think that one of the things that's very interesting about it is that America was the country you wanted to live in. I mean, there's people all over the world who wanted to move to the United States, it was the country to live in. Not only did it become the most powerful country, I mean, it is really a modern-day Rome, right? Where all the outer lands wanted to come to this place. It was a place of great power. It was a place of great prosperity. And to go from that to this place that was frowned upon, that was, you know, some good deal of shame carried about what had been going on, and the growth of the country had been at the expense of many other things that we now hold valuable.
Right.
And it seems like Obama has, well, I know for sure he's inherited a mess, because, you know, as you said, you know, foreclosures, recession, war. I don't care who you vote for. The fact of the matter is that's a mess. He's inherited that mess, and at the same time is going to try and lead the country in a new direction. This guy's job is not going to be an easy one by any stroke of the imagination. But what I find fascinating is if you look at the cabinet he's putting together. Have you seen who he's putting in there?
Some of the people, yeah.
Well, what's fascinating is not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what he's doing. And what he's doing is he's picking opponents. He's putting not just allies, not sycophantic people who are just going to tug their forelock and go, yes, sir. Right. He's pulling people into his cabinet who don't agree with him. Hillary Clinton, her whole policy on foreign affairs is completely different than Obama's, and he's put her in that role.
Right.
And he's done that with several people, even Joe Biden, who is his second in command. Many of his policies are opposing. And he said in his acceptance speech, I welcome your arguments. I welcome that. Because he's not willing to approach the presidency as a dictator.
Right.
And I find that not only refreshing, I find it bloody exciting.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, just think of what that example sets on the international stage. Now all of a sudden you can go and have a meeting with some heads of state and leave it saying, well, we didn't agree, but you know there aren't going to be tanks rolling tomorrow.
Exactly. You know, because you know, one of the great things you and I have talked about in these podcasts is what is enlightenment. You know.